Welcome back to another episode of Life in the Stands podcast. We have Jake and Zach on the podcast today. We're really excited to jump into some NBA playoffs action. We're going to predict all of the first round series and maybe some finals picks if there's enough time, or if Bender, gets a little antsy and just wants to get into it. If you are watching on YouTube or whatever channel you're watching on, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate everyone watching and listening, and for all the support. Remember to check out Life in the Stands articles with Kyle and Beans. Not writing those; those are going to be posted on our Twitter. Remember to go follow us and interact with us on Twitter. That's where we're most active. And without further ado, Bender, let's get into let's talk about the Western Conference series first, and let's kind of go through those first round series, and then we can jump into the Eastern Conference because I can imagine we might have some more things to say on that side of the bracket. So let's jump into the 1 versus 8 seed, and now we're recording this on Thursday night. So the last playing game has yet to be decided, but I think for the 1 versus 8 matchups, whoever that team is, Bender, whether it's the Pelicans or the Kings coming out of the 8 seed in the West, going against the Thunder, what's your take on that series?
Yeah, like you said, I think a one seed going against an eight seed, you will not see an upset in either side of the conference there. It's kind of cool to see the Thunder at the number one pick because there's a lot to talk about with them. They still have all those picks kind of hoarded up over there. So this offseason for them, I think, will be their next step for actually competing for a championship. This year will be like the stepping stone, get experience type of thing. I expect the Kings to win this game Friday night against the Pelicans, with Pelicans not having Zion. I guess he did something to his hamstring, some kind of muscle soreness or strain, not really sure. Either way, he's out and they are going to be out. I think the Thunder will win in 6 games just because they are the better team and the most consistent team between the two this year. But I also think the Kings can push it to 6 games because of their experience and what they went through last year. They have a pretty similar group, and you never know if Fox or Sabonis or both in the same night will have a great game just to carry them for 1 or 2 wins.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with a lot of the things you said there. I think OKC getting the first seed is really exciting. One thing I am questioning though is what if the Pelicans do go and pull this off against the Kings in this playing game, and what if Zion can come back at some point in the series with the Thunder? Because Zion in the game against the Lakers, it's his first ever playoff game, and he showed out a little bit. So I would be excited to see him back in the series if they could possibly beat the Kings and get into the actual 7 game series with the Thunder. But overall, the better series probably is the Kings, just because they are healthy and, like you said, there's potential there to just blow up and have an explosive game and then push it to 5 or 6. I'd probably say 5. Maybe I wouldn't give them 6. I bet they steal a game back in Sacramento. But either way, you also alluded to the number 1 versus 8 seeds on both sides of the bracket. I think we'll get into the 1v8 seed and who do we think is going to win, that 8-9 game as well. But I think the 1 seed might have more trouble on the eastern side of the bracket than the western side of the bracket. Just a thought.
That's that's interesting. Do you want to jump to the other 1 versus 8 and just get it out of the way real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. Can I jump into it first?
Yeah,
Yeah,
how
so I
about it?
think the Celtics they've had a fantastic season, but it feels like fake. Like it feels like no adversity. It feels like kind of like a sham. Like it's like the part of the movie where like somebody realized they're behind a green screen. Like I really think that a lot of their success, like they just got off to a hot start and they kind of just kept it rolling. But I sense fatigue within the locker room in Boston. So I think that going against a team like the Miami Heat, if Jimmy Butler is, well, I guess the report came out and said that he's out a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
But knowing Jimmy, if they get into that series and it's 2-0, I bet you Jimmy Butler finds a way to play game 3. And that series goes to 2-1 at that point, and the fourth game is in Miami. I don't know. Like it still feels like that's pressure on the Celtics that um, I don't think a lot of people would be saying is going to happen right now. But I think the Heat are a tough matchup for the Celtics. The Bulls, I don't think are as big of a deal. I don't know if there's as many pieces on the Bulls. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Um, but still, I feel like the Celtics haven't like truly been tested this season.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of interesting ups and downs for them, I would say. Here's where I don't think there's going to be any competition no matter what team they play against. So you and I were talking about this off the podcast, obviously. I wanted the Sixers to get the Knicks, partly to stay away from the Celtics first round, because as a Sixers fan, we just keep getting knocked out by them. But the Miami Heat are the Celtics' kryptonite. But there's a but in there. Jimmy Butler needs to be healthy. So I think he's not even going to return for the actual series itself. If he does, it would have to be second round, maybe like mid second round. With an MCL injury, a typical recovery is like 4 weeks minimum. And that's like full recovery. It's not saying he won't get braced up and want to go out there, like you said, but um, I just don't think a banged up Jimmy Butler is going to be enough with the roster they have around him. And then with the Bulls, if the Bulls end up winning, which I think they might, not really sure what's going on with Caruso because him and Drummond collided the other night as well.
Right.
So that's going to be a big missing piece for them. Um, DeRozan's cool. Kobe White went off for 40. So you have like the random games from those guys that might carry them through the play-in, but not against the Celtics. Celtics just have not a deep roster, but like a star-studded roster at this point to take
Right.
over.
Right. Well, either way, I think even if the Heat do get in there and push it to 6 or possibly 7 in like the best case scenario, I do think the Celtics are going to come out of that series. So either way, both have the 1 seeds over the 8 seeds. Let's jump back over to the West and go to the 2-7 matchup. This is the Nuggets and the Lakers. The Lakers just having won their playing game.
Yeah, I'll jump into this one first. I think the Nuggets will win in six. I don't think the Lakers have enough, although the way the Lakers played the other night in their first play-in game is very intriguing just because they're shooting really well, um, at least from that game alone. And the Lakers are a different team when D'Angelo Russell's playing well. A part of that series with the Nuggets last year was D'Angelo Russell um, being inconsistent and Anthony Davis being inconsistent. So if you can get enough from both guys, I think you have a competitive series because you know what you're going to get from LeBron. Um, and then you just need those bench guys to contribute like they've been. Um, I still love the Dinwiddie pickup. I think that's been a better pickup for them. Um, but the Nuggets just have a lot to overcome them, basically. You're playing a mile high, and there's just no shot for the Lakers.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we've talked earlier, like during the season, saying that the Lakers could be like a dark horse title favorite. And I'm not saying that they would be my title favorite right now, but I do think that they actually beat the Nuggets in this first round series. I think that the Lakers and the Nuggets have faced off 2 out of the last 4 playoff seasons, 3 out of the last 4, something like that. Um, and it's been about even, and there's some recency bias, I think, because the Nuggets did get them last year, but the Lakers also beat them in a Western Conference Finals en route to the championship that LeBron and AD got together. So I mean, it's going to be a powerhouse matchup. I could see it going either way. I think it does go to 7 though, because it's hard for me to imagine. Hard for me to.
Another beatdown like last year.
What'd you say?
Another beatdown like last year.
Yeah, like I can't imagine that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping that it goes to 7 either way because it'll be good basketball and fun to watch.
I think it's the best matchup to beat the Nuggets because I think the Lakers have enough size to like compete with them. Outside of the Timberwolves, I think would be a close second in that category with Towns and Gobert.
Yeah,
Um, but I just don't see it. In the year they beat the Nuggets, which I think was COVID, the bubble, maybe, I
bubble,
think,
I think. Yeah,
Jamal Murray didn't even play. So I think Jamal Murray makes a difference. Um, and if he's playing and he plays really well in the playoffs, if you keep track of his history,
yeah,
you need D'Angelo Russell to cancel him out. And
yeah,
that's not happening.
yeah. We will see. We will see. That'll be a good matchup. Let's jump into the 3 versus the 6. This is the Timberwolves as the 3 seed and the Suns as the 6 seed.
Yeah, you go first on this one because I want to see where you go with this.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Timberwolves on this series. I like the Timberwolves because I think Ant is that guy. I think Anthony Edwards is gonna kind of have a coming out in this playoff run. I think he's really gonna show out. I don't think the Timberwolves are gonna go super far, but yeah, I think this is his first chance to really play with a competitive team in a good situation, home court advantage in the playoffs. I think he's improved his game a lot, and I think there's a little bit too much made up about the idea that he's like super bad against Devin Booker too, and against the Suns in general. I think a lot of that'll get cleared up this series. So I like the Timberwolves in this one. I also like the size that the Timberwolves have compared to the Suns. So I'm gonna take the Timberwolves in six here.
The size by the Timberwolves is the only thing that scares me if you're the Suns. Um, but I do have the Suns in seven. Um, you don't know how healthy Towns is. He just came back off injury, so you don't really know what you're going to get from him. It's like another Embiid situation basically for them. Like they have the roster, but do they have enough with the health that they're in? I think it's going to be another scenario where experience makes a difference, and I've been pretty consistent with this. If you've been keeping up with the podcast, um, I just don't like that they're inexperienced. At most, they get through this first round, but I think the Suns and KD specifically is just done with losing in the playoffs early. So I think you'll see KD have a big series. I think you'll see Booker struggle a little bit because Ant does play pretty good lockdown defense for himself. I'd like to see where the defensive matchups align. If you're the Timberwolves, um, like you got Mike Conley, you got Ant, like they all play defense on the Timberwolves, but you don't have really the size for, or not really the size, but like the speed for Kevin Durant. Because Towns is the best defender in the world, and that's like the size you have, I guess. So there's going to be some kind of mismatch somewhere, which is why I think the Suns can take advantage. And to end my thoughts here, with the NBA playoffs, you see a lot with mismatches and matchups. So that's where my decision is being made.
Yeah, and those are good points. I mean, anytime you talk about KD in a playoff series, I mean, it's always a mismatch unless it's Kawhi or LeBron or Paul George on the other side of
Yeah.
on the other side of the token. So I mean, there's very few defenders in the NBA or players in general that I think play against KD in a playoff series, and you say that guy has a chance.
Yeah.
So it just speaks to the greatness of KD. But I think the Suns do have a lot of offensive firepower. Honestly, I mean, they just signed Grayson Allen to think of big contract. But that's besides the big three that's there, obviously. And then we've talked about the DeAndre Ayton trade before on the show. I think I think we agree that that was a good move for them because they brought in a guy that's given them the same thing and they got a bunch of return for it on top of it. So overall, I mean, the Suns are a great team too. This is, it's another 3-6 matchup. And I think it also goes to show just the competitiveness of the NBA in general. I feel like 5, 10 years ago, the top half of these conferences, the first round was like pretty much a given. Like those 1, 2, and 3 seeds, like I remember some years in the playoffs where like 7 and 8 seeds were like 15, 20 games under 500
Hmm.
playing as the 7 or 8 seed, like the pretty bad teams just getting run
Yeah.
up on in the first round of the playoffs. So it feels like every one of these matchups is pretty competitive. Like all of them are going to be good series. I don't think there's going to be like hardly any sweeps.
And you're talking about competitiveness again. I want to talk about how the Western Conference is all of a sudden the dominant conference again. I believe you have what, like 10 or so teams that are all above 500. And again, like partial like amount of those teams are in the play-in. So
Hmm.
like you're talking about over 500 and you still have to play in a play-in.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if they went to a non-conference like playoff bracket where like there was no conferences, it's just the top
Yeah.
how many teams that they want to choose? Like I feel like that'd be kind of crazy.
It would be kind
Um,
of crazy.
and you'd see the dominance then from the Western Conference, I think, as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I also think it'd be good for variety because you don't want to see the. I'm sorry, but I'm tired of seeing the Sixers and the Celtics every year. Um, like as an example, that's the example that
Right.
comes to mind as a Sixers fan.
Yeah.
I think that'd be something to look forward to in the future. and then you just play the Western Conference teams and the teams in your division a lot more often during the regular season. I think that would work out really well.
I think that, yeah, I mean, that's definitely an interesting idea. I like the idea of the playoff matchups all getting switched up too, because like you're saying, like the conferences all play each other in those series. So it'd be nice to just have more like cross contamination there. It would make for, you know, I think just better viewership for basketball fans. But going all the way back to the Western Conference remarks you made too, I think, you know, you look at a team like Golden State, who just got bounced out of the playing game. They had a better record this year than they did last year, and last year they were the 7 seed, I think, playing in the top playing game, and then just I think they were the 7 seed last year. Um, so like they had a better record than last year, and they're 3 spots lower in the standings. Lose one playing game, boom, out of the playoffs. Now everyone's talking about how they're going to blow up their roster to figure out how to move forward again. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens, but just
Again,
goes
I
to show,
guess
like
the
you're saying,
play-in
competitiveness.
scenario stuff now makes things a little bit different, like year by year. So if you don't want to make a big change, I think the play-in's actually very good for viewership. You saw what the Miami Heat did coming out of the play-in last year.
Yeah,
Um, so I like the idea. I like the variety in that sense. It just makes me wonder, even if they broke up the in-season tournament and didn't do conferences for the in-season tournament, I think that'd be cool.
right.
Like you can randomize the sections or whatever they were calling them.
Yeah, the groups
Um,
and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of improvements to be made with
yeah,
everything.
yeah. It's coming though. It feels like the NBA is making its way there, and they're willing to change at least because they're doing some different things in the past couple of years. So, but let's jump into the 4 versus 5 matchup. This is becoming a pretty big playoff rivalry. It kind of feels like it's happening year after year. You have the Clippers as the 4 seed and the Mavericks as the 5th seed.
Yeah, we actually tweeted about this. Kawhi Leonard had some swelling in his knee, and it seemed concerning to those up close to the situation. Not really sure what that means for him. Hopefully they can get him ready to go. However, even if he's ready to go, I think the Dallas Mavericks have enough wing play to stick with PG and Kawhi. Um, I think the X factor in that series ends up being Russell Westbrook um, to go at Kyrie because Kyrie's been playing really well, and Kyrie's gonna have to play defense on somebody. You might need to put Russell Westbrook maybe even in the starting lineup and have him and James Harden go at those two,
I've
make
seen
them
that a
play
lot.
defense. Yeah, make them play defense.
Yeah,
It's a good idea. Like if you watched, I forget what series it was in. I think it was maybe Mavs and Suns a year or two ago, and they were posting up Chris Paul with Luca. You're gonna keep going at the guy that's running the offense or go at the guy that's hot at the time. So I think it's a good idea. Will it happen? I don't know, but I do have, if Kawhi's healthy, the Mavs winning in 7. If Kawhi's not healthy, they win in 6.
wait. So you have the Mavs winning in 7 if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, Mavs are winning in 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
It's
have the
just a
Mavs
one
winning.
game difference between the injury stuff. That's all.
Yeah, Mavs winning either way. I think the Clippers are a really deep team though this year as well. And again, earlier in the season, we've talked about the Clippers as possibly a title favorite at different points of this year. So they're a relatively new team. They haven't been together that long, but I do think there's some real weight behind the Clippers still being in a really good spot and playing from home here. So I'm actually going to take the Clippers in 7 as long as Kawhi is healthy. So I still think it'll go to 7 games, but I think the Clippers at home win that 7th game if Kawhi is healthy. If not, I would probably give it to Dallas in 6 or 7 too. We'll have to see how that situation plays out. Because the other thing that can happen, again, with a guy like Kawhi, he might go out there in game 3 or 4 and not be fully healthy and play a half or play like
Yeah.
a game and then play the first half and then get dinged up again.
Yeah.
So like, you know, at that point it's like how much impact does he really have in the series? Is that enough to get your team like the extra game it needs? But
Yeah. I mean, the Clippers have a lot of stars, so hopefully that can carry them into Kawhi getting healthy, hopefully.
right.
Um, but you don't want to go through the same situation year by year um, with like, oh, we're not really healthy. We're just fighting for our lives at this point. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, which is why Paul George might not resign next year.
And that would be very interesting for the Sixers who have a max slot opening up. Anyway,
Yes,
Let's jump
sir.
over to the eastern side of the bracket. Normally we would just go to the 2-7 seed matchup, but that is the Knicks and the Sixers. So we'll wait on that. We'll go to the 3-6 matchup, Bucks and Pacers. I'm gonna let you get all over this, Bender.
Pacers beat the Bucks 4 out of 5 this year, including the in-season tournament. And Giannis is not healthy. Dame is aging very badly this year and has been tragic as of late. They couldn't win against the Magic. He had a poor game against the Magic to try and close in the 2 seed. Um, so I think the Bucks are in absolute shambles. I think the Pacers win in 6, and that's only because I think Giannis will come back at some point in that series and give them a game or two. Um, but now the Pacers also added Siakam, who wasn't there at all for I don't think for any of those games. Siakam gives them that size to match up with Giannis if they would like, however they want to play that matchup. But they at least have defense in Siakam and a shot blocker, Miles Turner, if you want to play him on the backside. Um, Halliburton is what he is, and you got the other guys playing really well around him. Our boy TJ McConnell's playing really well off the bench right now as well. Um, so I think the Pacers have this one back.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot to talk about in this series because it just feels like it's all the Pacers' way. It just feels like all the cards are lining up for the Pacers to go and take this one. It's the dream matchup if you're coming out for the Pacers as the 6 seed, facing a 3 seed. For the Bucks, it's a worst nightmare because you would have much rather played a banged up Sixers team as the 2 and the 7. Would have been much better off. So it's unfortunate, but I think the Pacers also come out on top for that matchup. In the playoffs, you mentioned earlier, it's about personnel, it's about matchups, it's about finding the mismatches.
Real,
So
real quick, talking about matchups. Stay tuned. We do have a My Coach segment, which is a new segment coming up. We're going to talk about how we're going to scheme as a certain team in a certain series, specifically probably next week. So tune in on that one.
yeah, we'll be a little bit into the first round, so it'll be really interesting. I think that yeah, that'll be a lot of fun to do. So let's jump into the 4-5 matchup in the East. This is the 4 seed Cavaliers against the 5 seed Magic.
Um, this is one I haven't really thought through as much, and I'll say that as whoever comes out of the series is getting bounced anyway, which is probably why I didn't think about it. Um, Man, I love the Magic this year. Paolo's doing his thing. What worries me is Donovan Mitchell's health. Donovan Mitchell plays really well in the playoffs. He can get you 40. I kind of want to take the Magic in 7. But I'm actually going to take the Magic in 7. Sorry for the question mark behind that first statement. But no, I'm going to take the Magic in 7. I think Paolo's great, and the other guys around him are playing well, which is weird to see, but I'm happy for him.
Yeah, the Magic have surprised a lot this year, and the fact that they've made it into the 5th seed, I think, is really, really incredible for them. It's a testament to how much they've grown and really how impactful Paolo is right away in the NBA. I think his game is translated very well and will translate well in the playoffs. But, if you look at the jump from the Magic from last season to this season, it's pretty, it's stellar, right? That's a big jump. So to imagine them coming in and also knocking off a Cavs team that does have a decent amount of experience in the playoffs at this point, I think this is one series you mentioned earlier where experience might come into play. And that Cavs team that just has a little bit more, they have, they still have, they have Max Strus there, they have Niang there, even Darius Garland and Jared Allen, and a lot of their guys at this point are vets, have had playoff experience, kind of know the drill, know what to expect. Whereas the Magic team has already far exceeded expectations for this year. So that's how I've looked at this series. So I do really like Paolo though, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Magic do going forward because now they have a guy. They have a guy that could be a top 10 or a top 15 player in the league if he continues to progress in years 3, 4, 5 kind of a thing. So it'll be interesting to see. And
The
Jonathan Isaac, hopefully he stays healthy too because he's a wicked defender when he's on the court.
Yeah, I was gonna say, first thing to bring up is the Cavs have had the same core at least for the last 2, 3 years now since the Gobert trade out of Utah. or not the Gobert trade, Mitchell trade out of Utah, excuse me. Um, they blew up that whole team. I'm saying everybody from that team at this point.
Yeah, everybody's
Um,
except for Jordan Clarkson. He's still in Utah.
yeah, and then the funny part about this is I would go with experience, but the Magic draft and or trade for a lot of Michigan guys. So you got a lot of love from me there if you're Orlando. Sorry, Karis LeVert, he plays for the Cavs, but here we are.
All right, well, let's get into the excuse me, the last first round series. This is the Knicks and the Sixers. The Sixers won that 7-8 matchup. So
You go first.
Bender says I go first. Oh, there we go. I think the Knicks and the Sixers. So, I mean, obviously a lot depends on Joel Embiid's health. A ton depends on I think a ton depends on that. I think another thing that needs to be warranted is the Sixers looked the absolute worst against Miami when they were playing a zone. And I
Yeah.
don't think New York has quite the same ability to jump into different defensive schemes like that. Tibbs is pretty good. They have some personnel there. They might do some interesting things with Maxi or Embiid, doubling, tripling, whatever. But it's hard for me to imagine, the amoeba like zone that the Sixers, you know, drop a deuce against. I have no idea what to play against. Like
Thank
it's
you,
not
Nick
gonna look like
Batum.
that. What'd you
Thank
say?
you, Nick Batum.
Yeah, thank you, Nick Batum, for being able to shoot the basketball. And that brings up the next point that I'd say, number three, is that the Sixers are deep this year. I think they do have wing depth. They do have off-ball scorers. They have guys in Buddy Hield or Nick Batum or Cam Payne that could come off the bench and get you 5 or 6 threes in the game. So and the X factor still Tobias Harris. Like you're talking about Maxi and Embiid, no one talks about Tobias Harris still, but Tobias could go and get you 20 consistently for a whole series, depending on matchups too. So maybe 25. So I think the Sixers do really have some depth this year that's exciting to see. I think I'm going to take the Sixers winning this series against the Knicks, especially because Julius Randle is probably a big question mark throughout the whole thing too.
Yeah, I believe Randall at this point's out for the year. So that's not for us to worry about anymore. It's more of a worry about Embiid. However, if he's able to get you 25 or 20 something points that he got against Miami, I think it was 23 and 15 rebounds, something like that.
Yeah.
On a limp, maybe. I'm not really sure. Um, I'm not sure if he's more out of shape or hurt. I'm gonna go with out of shape. I just feel like he plays with his knee brace a lot, and that is what it is.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't think the Knicks have enough size in this series. I have the Sixers winning in six, just because I think Jalen Brunson is that guy. He will carry them for a game or two, even if it's just Jalen Brunson for a game and DiVincenzo and Bogdanovich for a game, whatever the
Josh Hart.
combination is. Yeah, Josh Hart. Like they have random guys that are needed in a series like this. Um, but we are the deeper team, in my opinion. I feel like we're probably the deepest team in the Eastern Conference, if not like the second deepest team in the league behind probably the Clippers at this point, in my opinion. Um, so I have the Sixers winning. I'm not really concerned about Embiid at this point. I'm more concerned about um, Tobias Harris, maybe. I'm glad we squeaked that game out against Miami just because, yeah, that was our kryptonite, but like Tobias Harris and Embiid don't really play well against Miami. Like it's always the other guys, like the dribble penetrators and the catch and shoot guys, because that zone is like a double or triple team on Embiid, and Jimmy Butler's still pissed off about the contract. So Tobias Harris, you're done for a night. Like I
Yep.
feel like that's just the way it goes when we play them. So the Jimmy Butler injury was big for us last night because I think if he stays healthy in that game, it's not, I don't know, we're not coming back in that game.
Yeah, it's a different story. It's a different story. And you got to credit the Sixers for some resiliency, but if Jimmy's healthy, like you're saying, it's not Tyler Hero down the stretch taking all of the shots. Definitely not.
Yeah, yeah. I have a question for you. So we both had the Knicks coming out. We both had we both had the Sixers beating the Knicks. We both had the Pacers beating the Bucks. Do you think the Sixers can potentially beat the Pacers and go and visit the Celtics again in the conference finals? Is that what we're looking at?
I'm happy you brought this up because I think this is the easiest path to the conference finals that the Sixers have had in the last couple of years, like probably in like the Embiid era, because they don't have to play Miami or Boston or Milwaukee in the second round. They get to play the Knicks and then they get to play potentially the Pacers. And even if they play Milwaukee this year, I think it's a good matchup for them with the way the teams are currently constructed. So at this point, I think it's very likely that the Sixers do end up in the conference finals. And I think we can all agree as well that it's likely the Celtics end up there too. So that will be an interesting matchup if it gets to that point.
Yeah. Another part to that, in my opinion, like we've always had the Bucks number, so I'm not really worried about them. We have the size to match up with them, so that kind of is what it is. Um, I will say I'm scared of the Pacers in the second round. Um, Kind of crazy, but Siakam tends to know how to play against the Sixers. The Sixers dropped a game to an unhealthy Pacers team while we were fully healthy earlier in the year. That kind of scared me, like, oh crap, we run into the Pacers in the playoffs, like this might go seven. Um, I'm gonna leave it at we're gonna go into 7 games against the Pacers. I'm not gonna decide on who wins that until I see the first round.
That's fair. Yeah, that's entirely fair. I think that it would be a good series. It's definitely a clash of styles, right? Because Embiid is traditionally a more slow paced, makes the Sixers a more slow paced team, whereas the Pacers obviously are a high high tempo, fast paced kind of offense. So they definitely try to get out and run, and the Sixers have not done well in transition defense recently, evident in the
Yeah,
Miami game. So it would be an interesting matchup, a clash of styles. Now that you say that too, I might actually prefer a Milwaukee matchup in the second round over a Pacers matchup just because I know the styles there are similar. We know what to expect from Milwaukee. And I
yeah.
think them switching out Drew and getting Dame, I'll take that all day. I would much rather play against Dame in a 7 game series than Drew Holiday.
Make them play defense and whatever else you can pick apart from that team.
Right,
Middleton's not healthy.
right.
Like, there's a lot that goes with it. Um, Closing comments from me. I'll let you wrap this up here, but you want to talk about the level of competition, even with like the 7 and 8 seeds squeaking in there. There's gonna be a lot of good basketball being played. Um, so it's not like there's a matchup where I'm like, no, I'm not turning the TV on. Like I'm turning the TV on for everything at this point, which is kind of cool and it's kind of a good evolution to what the NBA's been doing.
Yeah, it's really good for the NBA. I like that there is so much parity because all the series we just talked about, we disagreed on a couple of them, which I feel like is pretty abnormal for the first round of NBA playoff series if you
Yeah,
look at the last couple of years. It wasn't that long ago that people were getting tired of watching the finals because it was LeBron and the Cavs against the dream team from Golden State,
yeah,
4 years, 7 years in a row in the finals, and everyone was tired of watching that. Now we're going to the first round of the playoffs saying, well, shoot, doesn't, like, depending on the way the bracket lines up, like we could see a couple different teams in the conference finals, a couple different teams in the finals. Like it's a real interesting time to watch NBA basketball. So, but with that, thank you again for everyone for watching and listening, whatever streaming platform you're on. Remember to like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next time on Life in the Stands.